Okay, we're going to add rings around this moon, and it's pretty cool, the process that we use to do this. We're going to make a new file for make the rings in a new file, and then cut and paste the rings into this image. So our first step is to make a new file. File, new, new document window. Make sure you're in pixels, not inches for this one. Pixels. For the width, 2000 pixels. For the height, 2000 pixels. Make sure you have 300 dpi. That's very important. So make sure you got these specs. For the background, let's choose black for this one, black background, and click create. Now make a new layer and go to filter. Oh wait, before I jump ahead here, make sure your foreground color is black and your background color is white. Okay, make sure that, so like hit the default black foreground, white background. Now, okay, we're on our new layer. Go to filter, render, clouds, and you'll get that. Next, go to filter, distort, twirl, and you'll want the angle set to maximum. Put the slider all the way to the right so it's 999. Click OK. That's what you get. We're going to do that 2 more times. Filter, distort, twirl. Same thing, all the way to the right. 1 more time. Filter, distort, twirl. And click OK. There it goes. Okay, so we want to cut a hole in this, and so what we're going to do is use the elliptical marquee tool. It doesn't have to be exact. Just position your cursor what you think is the center. Hold down the Shift key and hold down Alt or Option. Alt on the PC, Option on the Mac. So Shift, Option, or Shift, Alt. Click, hold, and drag outward. And let's see, I don't know, I really can't give you an exact measurement of that, but maybe you can see on the screen, you can see how much I'm selecting. Then I'm going to hit the delete key. So get your image similar to what you're seeing on the screen. Keep the marching ants going. Now we have to transform this selection and make it delete some more stuff. So with the marching ants visible, go to Select, Transform Selection. Once again, hold down Shift and Option or Alt, grab a corner, and pull this out, pull the marching ants out so we're selecting like a section of rings. And once you see me, maybe watch me do this first and then you can follow me. So I have the I transform my selection. I'm going to hit the return key. So now everything in here is selected in the marching ants. I'm going to invert the selection. I'll just go select, inverse. So now all this stuff out here is selected. I'm going to hit the delete key. So rewind the video if you have to, or back up, but like get this image that you're seeing here before proceeding. Okay, just pause the video, get that squared away, and I'll keep going here. Okay, once you get to this like ring shape, you do a Command D to deselect. Now we're going to add some noise to this, so click Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and then make sure Gaussian is selected and set the amount to about 15. Okay, then click OK, and you see when we added noise, it added like these green and red specks in there. We want to get rid of that, so we're going to add a hue saturation layer and crank down the hue. So over in your layers palette, add an adjustment layer, hue saturation, and pull the saturation all the way down to 0. Okay? And then, let's see, we're going to do another adjustment layer to decrease the density of this thing, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so top layer is selected, add another adjustment layer, and we're going to choose levels. There's a slider here. This is called a histogram. Yours will look a little bit different, but there's a middle slider. Click, hold, and drag that middle slider, and I'll back up so you can see. As I drag to the right, the rings get spacier. Okay, so everybody's will be a little bit different, but I have my middle slider. Let me see if I grab this one. I don't want to do that. I grabbed this middle slider and I pulled it to the right so that I can start to see through the rings. All right. Then what do I want to do next here? I'm going to add some color to this. So I'm going to add a new layer, or pardon me, I'm going to add a new adjustment layer. And I'm going to add a saturation layer. Oh, darn it. I'm going to add another hue saturation layer. I hope that wasn't confusing. Okay. I'm going to colorize the layer, and I get this really weird color, and I'm going to choose a hue which I think will work with my composition, which I think a gold would kind of work. So I have my hue slider all the way. Let me see what that looks nicer too. Okay, and I'm going to crank down my saturation. I just want a hint of color in this. So this is, I kind of messed up. I added the wrong layer there, but this is what I want now. Okay, so I have my ring layer. I added some noise, so I had to add a hue saturation layer, which is saturation is all the way down. My levels adjustment layer, which I put the middle very far to the right, just so I can put some space between my rings, and a final hue saturation layer, which I have on colorize, and this is the hue saturation positions for the rings that I'm using here. And what's cool about digital art is I can change any of this stuff I want to, later on down the road. Okay, so select the top layer, select your layer 1, and I don't know if I want to compress these. Yeah, why not? Let's compress them. So all these layers are selected. On your keyboard, you can hit the 3 parallel lines, and you can choose flatten or merge layers. Merge layers is what you want to do, or you can just do a Command or Control E. I'll just select merge layers. So now all the layers are selected. This will default the uppermost layer is what it'll be called. So let's call this rings, just so it doesn't get confusing. With this layer selected, do a Command or Control C. Let's go to our file that we've been working on. Make sure the top moon shade layer is selected, and do a Command V, and there's our rings, and it looks really ugly, right? Don't worry, it's going to look cool. Rings layer selected. Hit. We're going to change the blending mode to screen, and now we're starting to cook with gas here, right? Rings layer enabled. Command T to transform, and we're not going to hold down the shift key or anything. We're going to actually distort this. I'm going to grab the top handle, and I'm going to pull this down to something that looks plausible and cool. And now, like this, my rings are not big enough for my moon, so I'm going to stretch them out this way too, and I'm going to get something. Don't worry about this stuff, we're going to erase that. So I'm going to size and stretch and position my rings. You want it the rings are going to be around the center of the moon, and they're going to be evenly spaced and symmetrical. So that looks pretty cool to me. I'm going to hit return, and it's okay that it goes off the canvas. It gives a little bit of interest. Now what I got to do is get rid of this chunk here, and I'm simply going to use my eraser tool. So I'll enable my eraser tool, hit the letter E on the keyboard. Make sure you're using a soft brush. Make sure your opacity and flow are both at 100% for your eraser. Okay. Come over here, and I'm going to carefully, decrease the size of my brush on the side, so like I'm only erasing what I want to erase. And those are my rings. Now if those rings look too weird, you can crank down the opacity of them if you want, which I might do. I think that looks better if I crank down my opacity. These look okay. It's interesting, but I think I kind of like subtlety better than stuff that's like in your face. So I crank down the opacity to about 60. If you don't like the color, you can always add a hue adjustment layer to your rings, but that's looking pretty cool. So that's save your file. You do not have to, you can get your rings file, you don't have to save that if you're happy with it. But anyway, save this file, and I will see you in the next video.